And welcome to the third hour of American Agenda. I'm Alison Maloni.
And I'm Bob Sellers. We are joined today by our family of co-hosts, former Chief of Staff to Mike Lee, Boyd Matheson, Democratic strategist and former Obama campaign director, Robin Bureau, and business and market analyst and author of The Cure, a blueprint for solving America's health care crisis, Seth Denson. And so here's one of the things we want to look at, and maybe the vaccine is contributing to this, is the squad right before they have some kind of power perhaps in Washington, showing some cracks. Progressive liberal Congresswoman Ilhan Omar called it shameful that young, healthy lawmakers such as fellow squad member Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, otherwise known as AOC because it's easier to say, is getting the COVID vaccine before seniors and healthcare workers. Take a look.
Ready? Mm-hmm. Okay, relax your arm. There we go. All done.
Hey, that's it.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. AOC, is that what we meant to show there? Because Ilhan Omar had criticized her for taking it. That the AOC took the vaccine to prove to others that it was fine to do so, as if we didn't know that by now, at least if you believe it's safe. There are enough other people out there. So are we getting growing pains, Boyd? I mean, they're already turning on each other?
You know, I think it's always fascinating to see how when the spotlights go up, the jockeying for position happens on both the left and the right. And so there are a few members of Congress that if you get between them and a camera, you're putting your life at risk.
Oh, that's funny.
I don't know that this is any big. I don't think this is any big fracture within that group. I do think it's also an interesting thing, though, that I think we're going to see more of this following the Trump administration, that there is going to be more kind of ad hoc alliances as opposed to these really galvanized groups that we've had in the past. And I think this might be a reflection of it, that, hey, I can criticize you on this particular issue, but I'm going to be with you on something else. So it's much more a transactional politics, which I think will be part of a very good legacy from President Trump, is we're going to do this based on one thing at a time, not just because we're in the blue suits or in the red suits.
Yeah, Robin, it seems as though the bloom is off the AOC rose a little bit, if you will, because, for instance, there was, I don't know how this works. Maybe you do better than I do. Certainly you gentlemen know more. But being voted onto a committee, there's not a lot of support to put AOC on any committees, including any so-called important ones, right?
You're exactly correct, Bob. And look, I just want to say that the squad, if you will, they don't speak for us, people like me, the centrist Democrats with some logic, because logic will tell you just want people to get vaccinated when the time is right. And the CDC requirement was that our governance here was that continued government was essential. So I am all for these people setting a good, clear example by taking the vaccine as it's available to them.
Yeah, Seth, what's your take on this? You're a healthcare expert kind of guy right off the bat. So what insight, what should we be watching?
Well, I think first we have to consider the source, right, and recognize the emotion behind the fact that Congresswoman Omar lost her father to coronavirus. So she's probably very sensitive about this, especially when young, healthy people are stepping ahead. But as was made, the point that was just made, though, is right, in that we do have a continuity of governance plan in place in the United States. And so while I don't fault AOC, nor do I fault Marco Rubio or many of the others on both sides of the aisle that are getting this, I do think that it can come across as tone deaf when we have healthcare workers and elderly people that need it more that aren't getting it.
Yeah, Alison, what's your take on it?
Well, we spoke about this Samadi earlier, and he touched on it a little bit. There is a time and a place for people to get it, and we have folks who are older, we have healthcare workers, we have frontline workers who need it. So did AOC necessarily need to get it right now? I don't think so. I know that their explanation was that they wanted to show people that it was safe, that they want to encourage people to get it, but there's a time and a place for that. So I think it's just, let the people who really need it get it, let the older folks, let those who have a compromised immune system get it. I just don't think that, you should play it up for the camera.
Yeah, a lot of it's symbolism at this point, Robin, and it seems even Tulsi Gabbard, by the way, came out and criticized younger, healthier people getting it right now. And it's all symbolic. I mean, we know that Congress is just a few hundred people, but in the same way that it's symbolic, certain people getting the jab, as they like to call it in the UK, can make some progress for others that might be reluctant to do so. You also see Congress once again not being like you and me because they have access to stuff that we don't. That's another example right there.
Oh, you are exactly correct. And I understand the anger. And I'm so glad, I believe it was Seth that pointed out that Congressman Omar's father passed away. So I understand, the situation there. I lost my own father a year ago. So get it. It's raw. It's very real to her. But these people are leading by example. That's what we want our governors, our people in government to do. So let them do it. I'm so frustrated right now hearing my peers on the far left criticizing members of Congress for getting the vaccine. I get it. It's fair to say that they're getting it things that aren't available to the public, but they're leading by example. That's what I want them to do. That's what we elected them to office to do.
You think it's okay that AOC went ahead and got it?
I do. I think but I also get where Congressman Omar is coming from. It's raw.
Boyd, what's your thought there?
No, I think one of the fascinating things to look at is this is a leadership and a communication issue. As Robin rightly pointed out, kind of that tone deaf thing is prevalent, and there's a distrust of our leaders, again, across the spectrum of the country. And it's going to be fascinating to see who actually tunes into that, moving into the new administration, moving into a new year. I actually believe that the leaders for the future, if we ever want to have another really transformational kind of leader, it's going to be someone who did something either like FDR or Reagan, not in saying, hey, I have the plan for you, but they're going to reflect where the people are, because it's culture, it's community that lead, and the politicians follow. They just happen to be better at running to the front of the parade and acting like they were leading it all along.
So
this is one more example.
Just to get to the point, though, as far as AOC, though, you're ambivalent on that, or you think she shouldn't have gotten it, or what?
Well, I do agree with the point in terms of continuation of government. I do think that's an important thing for us. I think she probably could have waited a little bit, though, just in terms of tone deaf, or she could have come out with a better message and stronger leadership of, hey, I get this. I know colleagues that loved ones. This we can sustain the government and keep it going.
Yeah, I just, Alison, I'm not sure how I feel about counting on AOC to keep the government going.
I think a lot of people would be a little nervous about that. But look, she has a huge following on social media. Whether you agree or disagree with her policies, she is a younger person in a powerful place in Washington. So on the flip side, she has an opportunity to be a role model. I talked about this last week on John Bachman's show, and I think that she really, when she posts things and her actions, should really reflect on who she wants to be a role model for, whether it's young girls or women, to show that you can get this position in Washington. And so I think she really needs to think before she speaks. I always say that in the world of PR and marketing, and sometimes she doesn't, but she's got the following, and she has the social media, and she has the backing, obviously, because she continues to get voted in.
Yeah, well, this has been a strange year, 2020. It got me to agree with Ilhan Omar on something. So, that's not going to happen every year, I'll tell you that. We're going to take a break, and we will be back with more of American Agenda with our panel after this.
And welcome back to American Agenda. I'm Alison Maloni, along with Bob Sellers. The evangelicals have always been staunch supporters of the president, but something very odd happened on the evangelical TV show, The 700 Club. Televangelist Pat Robertson declared that Joe Biden will be president and President Trump should, quote, move on. Take a listen.
I think it's all over. I think the Electoral College has spoken. I think we're going to see a President Biden, and I also think we'll be seeing a President Kamala Harris not too long after. The president still lives in an alternate reality. He really does. People say, well, he lies about this, that, and the other, but no, he isn't lying. To him, that's the truth.
All right, so why is Pat Robertson taking a swipe at the president? Seth, do you have a take on this? It's a surprise to a lot of folks. The evangelical community has overwhelmingly supported the president and probably still does, which is why this surprised a lot of people.
Yeah, listen, recent polls show that evangelicals still support the president, 78%. That's among white evangelicals. Now, that is down, but it's down 3 points from 2016. So that's still within the margin of error of just about any polls. I still think that the president has significant support among evangelicals. But I think Pat Robertson is bringing up something that maybe many are thinking right now, which is at what point does it become too much to overturn this or go a different direction? With the Supreme Court shooting this down, with the Electoral College getting together and throwing their support behind President-elect Biden, I think that that is something that many are now starting to say, at what point do we need to start thinking about transition of government?
Yeah, Boyd, the interesting thing here, maybe that's exactly what's going on. We're always in kind of a funny position here because we know a lot of the people that watch us really support the president, but we also try to look at what are the constitutional steps, what are the legal steps that the president certainly has a right to pursue, and at what point do you try to enlighten people on other things that are going on so that there's not a big shock if it doesn't turn out the way they want?
Yeah, and I think part of the message, I agree with Seth in terms of kind of where everyone is and what everyone is looking at. I think it's an interesting combination for the evangelical community that it really is kind of a faith and reason moment for them. I think it's a time to look at, okay, we still had faith in this. We believed in the president. We liked policies as they related to the Supreme Court or the economy and jobs. The reality of the election is the reality of the election at this point. So we need to be reasonable there and start to make a pivot because there are, of course, many things that are going to take place in the months that are ahead. And you got to have both faith and reason if we're going to deal with a pandemic, a struggling economy, and a host of other issues.
Yeah, Robin, I think it's interesting. The president has had very strong evangelical support, probably as strong as any community in the country, really, politically speaking. But they admit that this is not a perfect person, but he certainly has delivered for them.
Yes, he has. And but look, I see what's happening here with Pat Robertson. He's doing what he needs to do to his own supporters. He's trying to manage their expectations and be very realistic with them about what lies ahead. As Seth said, with the Supreme Court, with the Electoral College, and I appreciate him managing those expectations. But I want to say that Pat Robertson is not the force to be reckoned with that he once was in the 80s and 90s. He's still a force to be reckoned with, but he doesn't hold as much power as he did at one time.
Yeah, and in fact, he ran for president one year, as I recall. And I think
1988.
Yeah, 88. I think he did fairly. Didn't he do it also again in 92? I don't think he never got real traction, but he did. Alison, what's your take on what's going on here?
Well, as we reported, for months, he has a strong base and strong supporters. So, I do agree with Seth and the rest of the panel. He needed to focus on moving forward. How much influence he has over everyone, is to question. I think that everybody really has made up their minds, right? So people have decided to move forward, or people are still listening to the legal team, and it just comes down to how much influence does he have. Again, I think people really are going to just take their own opinions and they're going to go with it, and they're not going to necessarily listen to someone, no matter how influential they are in that community.
Boyd, what kind of pressure is going on within people are in a difficult position in the Republican Party because they want to support the president. They certainly have seen him help them, especially in congressional seats, House seats, representatives. But at the same time, they do want to be clear-eyed on where this is going, right? That puts them in a tough position.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a tough position, but it's also an interesting position in terms of the president himself. The president is very transactional in nature. And so I think some members of Congress in particular are starting to say, okay, well, on this transaction, I'm not with the president. And so I'm going to pivot and say, it's time to move on, time to move forward. And so I think that's part of the equation for many members of Congress. Early on, of course, there was a lot of mental gymnastics going on as the different lawsuits were filed and so on. But to Seth's point, those are all part of the process, and we should applaud that. And that should actually give every American more confidence in the system.
All right, we're going to leave it there.
You follow the lead, all truth. If things pan out, you do it.
Okay, very good. You have like a Skype limit. When you start talking, Boyd, it goes like for 40 seconds in a minute. And then all of a sudden it starts getting jumbled. So if I interrupt you, I don't mean to.
That's Robin. Robin's pushing the button.
Nice try.
If only the people in my control room had a button on me, they'd be pushing it all day long to shut me up. But we're going to take, you laughed too hard at that, Alison. We're going to take a break. But in the old days, folks, you used to watch TV on your couch in the lounger, the Barca lounger, the one with the legs that would come up. But now there's another way to do it, and that, of course, is on your smartphone. And the Newsmax TV app, we hope you give that a chance because it's something you can do on the go. Just download it on your iPhone and Android phone and start watching. What's really nice is it's free. If you want to watch Fox, CNN, MSNBC for some crazy reason that we don't understand, you typically would have to have some kind of subscription to log on and get into it.
Yeah, that's right. We are 100% free, and that's why millions of people are now using our app and watching us on their devices. It takes probably less than a minute, so head over to the App Store on your iPhone or Android phone right now and download Newsmax TV. The Newsmax app is now one of the most downloaded free apps in the Apple Store. You head over to there, and we think you'll like it.
Yes, and we'll be back with more of American Agenda after this. Welcome back to American Agenda. I'm Bob Sellers along with Alison Maloni. Former head of the FDA, Dr. Scott Gottlieb, believes the new strain of COVID found in England is already here in the U.S., and a travel ban won't do anything to keep it from spreading here. Here is more with our national correspondent, Logan Raddick. Logan.
Good afternoon. Scientists say this new mutant strain can more easily infect children. Pfizer and Moderna are now testing their vaccines to see if they can work on this variant that is spreading to other countries. And in a statement, Moderna says, quote, based on the data to date, we expect that the Moderna vaccine induced immunity would be protective against the variants recently described in the UK. We'll be performing additional tests in the coming weeks to confirm this expectation. 3 different airlines fly directly from London to New York City daily, and New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is asking those companies to require passengers to test negative before boarding a flight. He says Delta and British Airways have already agreed to do so, with a decision pending from Virgin Airlines. And White House Coronavirus Task Force member Dr. Anthony Fauci says we shouldn't overreact and that it's likely this new variant is already here in the U.S. Back to you.
All right, Logan, thank you, sir. Well, coronavirus cases have exploded since Thanksgiving and will likely jump again after Christmas. And health experts say the new London strain is 70 times more contagious as hotspots explode across the country. Why can't medical professionals do something like approach the outbreaks in a military way, or should they? Meaning, when an outbreak occurs, could doctors and nurses flood the zone to provide care, in essence, kind of parachuting into hot zones? Earlier in our program, we had our Newsmax medical contributor, Dr. David Samadi, who thinks that we shouldn't panic.
No reason to panic, but we need to be concerned, and we need to watch this very carefully and see how it pans out in England. Most likely, this vaccine will cover most of the mutants that are out there. This seems to be much more contagious, but we still don't know if it's going to lead to more death. I think that people do not need to panic, but we need to watch this.
All right, let's bring back our panel. Seth, you're the healthcare expert. Dr. Samadi said, look, we shouldn't panic, but they are starting to see an increase in hospitalizations across the country. So as Bob had mentioned, is it possible to take nurses from other locations and put them at hotspots to make sure, you know, that people are getting care, that folks are getting attended to, that they have enough beds and enough staff?
Yeah, and that actually is already going on in some states. Remember, we have 50 states making up the union, and each state gets to set its own rules and boundaries for how healthcare is managed and people are accredited. And so prior to the pandemic, it would take sometimes months to get doctors credentialed in various states. That's taking a matter of hours now. And so there is, and something that should have happened a long time ago, a process in place where doctors and nurses and clinicians alike can start to go to some of these hotbed areas. Is it perfect? No, but it certainly is working, and we're seeing it happen now.
Boyd, what do you think? Because we talk about this other strain that's in Europe that they don't even know if it's here yet, but some are predicting it is. We have Christmas coming. We have seen a spike in cases. Should we be concerned?
Well, I think it's being cautious is the real thing. To be smart, to be wise, to do those small and simple things that we can do in our communities, and our communities can do that, and often they can do it without a big mandate from government in order to do it. So I think we have to trust the people a little bit. We need to make sure that the right information is continuing to get out. But I don't think anyone needs to go into panic mode. One, we've proven that we can put a vaccine that's safe and effective out on the market in record time. And by the way, that was really done not with a lot of government dollars. It was the private sector, Pfizer not even taking any government dollars to do their thing, saying they trusted the science and the private sector. So I think that's where our trust has got to be in ourselves, in our communities, and then in the way we can get things done.
Robin, we talked about this, potential military manner, right? So if we start to see an increase in outbreaks, and Seth has mentioned that we are doing that we are deploying nurses in some areas. Is there anything else that you think we should be doing as a country, the government should be doing?
Alison, I'm a veteran, and as much as I would love to see the military help where they could, I think this really boils down to personal responsibility. We've all got to step up and take proper measures here to continue to socially distance, continue basic hygiene measures of washing your hands and using hand sanitizer and avoiding those large gatherings. And for goodness sake, stay out of the bars this holiday season because this is real. I've got 2 school-age children, 8 and 12 years old, who are supposed to start back to in-person school in a couple of weeks. I would love for them to be able to without the fear right now of this new strain of this.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Me too. I need the kids to get back to school. Bob, we hear about this new strain. We're approaching Christmas. There's, of course, fear in a lot of states and cities that they're going to shut down again. We see it in New York. We've seen it in California. We're seeing it in some parts of Massachusetts. So how do we get through this next month or so, or really until a lot of people start getting the vaccine and not shut down?
Well, that's the question. And I don't know that the answer is to shut down. We tried it for a while in March, as we all were trying to, learn about this whole thing and see if we can't go in a hole and stay there for 6 months or a year until this virus goes away. And we're shutting down a $21 trillion economy. So it seems to make sense to deal with the real problem. I want people to work. I don't want them at home. I don't want to pay them not to work. I actually want people to go out and have us make our own decisions. But it does seem like there are some hospitals that are getting waves of patients and that needs to be dealt with. It just seems like that's not all the whole country at one time. So why can't we put resources where they're needed at the right time to get us through this?
Yeah, right. Because it's not happening as significantly in some areas versus others. So I want to get back to what Dr. Samani had said. He gave his own input about politicians who have gotten the vaccine so far. Let's take a listen.
I see a lot of government people, politicians in their 30s, 40s, and 50s that are getting this vaccine, and it's not necessary right now. Let's cover the people that are more vulnerable, that are going to die from this virus.
Seth, we talked about this earlier, but there are so many people who need the vaccine now. And actually, I just read in Massachusetts, inmates are going to get the vaccine over some people who really need it.
Yeah, I think that there's something off kilter with that one. And I agree with Dr. Samadi that, there will come a time where we need our influencers and our leaders to show the public that this vaccine is safe and they should get it. We talked about it earlier with AOC and some of the other, even congressional Republicans. But until such time as we have people that won't get the vaccine, but we have extra vaccines, I do think that we need to isolate those resources to those that need it most, and hopefully we'll do that going forward.
Boyd, I think there's still a concern among a lot of people about getting the vaccine, right? Others, because you do hear about allergic reactions, you hear about people who have flu-like symptoms, or people who just say, I just don't want to take it.
Yeah, this is a really fascinating piece of data. If you go back to the fall and talk of the vaccine came up in the context of the campaigns, At that point, you had a higher number of Democratic voters who were skeptical about taking the vaccine, while Republicans were very confident that they would take the vaccine when it came. Post-election, those numbers have almost flipped entirely. That Democrats now are very positive towards the vaccine and that it's safe and secure, and Republicans have become more skeptical. So even the politics is filtered in to something that shouldn't be, by the way. This is science, and this is where we need to keep it.
It always seems to do that, doesn't it? All right. Well, stick around. Coming up, we'll be back with more American Agenda after this. And welcome back to American Agenda. I'm Alison, along with Bob Sellers. The stimulus package will provide $600 to most of Americans. But of course, this bill is also stuffed with a lot of pork. It provides a ton of dough to build 2 new museums in Washington, money to help the Dalai Lama, and $95 million for maintenance and new furniture for the Senate building. And take a look at this. There's a lot of foreign aid. It's wrapped up in it, too. Asia, they're going to receive $1.4 billion. Egypt gets $1.3 billion. Sudan, $700 million. And the list goes on and on. Bob?
Yeah, and just to make clear, that's not the stimulus plan. This is part of the omnibus bill, all of it out there. And Boyd, I don't know what kind of give and take. Here's something that I thought was really interesting that Tulsi Gabbard said earlier, and that is when you have a big bill like this and nobody's really reading it, the problem is you vote on it and then you go in and find out, oh, I didn't know that was in there. And so stuff gets stuck in there, the process of Washington. You know that process. How much does that happen? I mean, you vote on something and you go, I know the headline stuff here, but I didn't know that was in there.
Yeah, and sadly, it's happening more and more and more. So many people say that the problem with Washington is we have too much conflict, and it's simply not the case. The real problem is collusion. A lot of people are celebrating today as this was a great compromise, great bipartisan cooperation. Collusion, it's all that stuff that gets thrown in there that has nothing to do with the bill. 51 senators could have very easily said, no, we should vote on these things separately. But what Washington is good at is manufacturing a crisis, a deadline. And then the leaders, remember, behind closed doors, only 4 people put that thing together. And they came out and said, this is all we've got. We either have to vote for this and accept it, or we have to turn our back on the American people and not fund the government.
Yeah.
And it's a fake fight and it's a false choice.
Robin, that doesn't seem like the way most Americans think it should work.
It's not. And look, this bill was over 5,000 pages long. Nobody had enough time to read this. It's insane. So God only knows what all is in there. But it is something. They gave us something. It took them 8 months to do it, but they gave us something. And it's desperately needed because we've got to remember the fact that right now there's a moratorium on evictions and foreclosures, and that ends in about 2 weeks. So these people are going to all of a sudden be stuck with a humongous bill probably for back rent, back mortgage payments. $600 isn't going to go nearly enough, but it's something, and we needed it desperately.
Yeah, and Seth, I guess the thing about it is I don't want to give people money that we don't have, but I also don't want them to have to stay home. So it's kind of like if you're going to force people to stay home, maybe you need to, like restaurant owners, bar owners, and workers that work there, they're in a tough situation.
Well, they are, and I think the problem here, as Robin says, is 5,000 pages. That's 4 War and Pieces, if you're doing the math on the number of pages here. This could have been written in 5 bullet points, right? Help those that are unemployed. Help restaurant and bar owners. Help those that need it the most, everyday Americans, right? These are the types of things we could have done, but we didn't. We decided to do a massive spending bill. And until we get to the point where congressmen and women that put pork on these bills have to wear billboards saying that it was them, almost like the Scarlet Letter, it will never end. Listen, pork is nothing new to American politics. Yeah. This is getting ridiculous.
I like it. And that's the thing about it. What Seth is saying, I've always said that if you just get a bunch of us in a room and say you can't come out until you come to a deal on a budget, we could do it. But the reason it took so long is to put in that stuff that they're buying votes with by giving away money that we don't have. That's why that process is so ugly, Alison.
Yeah, we don't have the money, Bob. We're in so much debt. I think if you put a bunch of business owners in a room, I think they could come up with a budget. I think they could come up with a plan much faster than a lot of the politicians. But again, I was doing some research. In 2018, Nancy Pelosi said that the tax cut, the $1,000, was crumbs. And now we're giving $600, which, again, we should be grateful. As Robin mentioned, we are in trouble. I think that there should be more money for businesses. I didn't see anything in there. Not that I read the 5,000 pages, but when I was trying to find what was in there, I didn't see anything in there for restaurants. And these restaurant owners, specifically in California and New York, are struggling. So you have to help small businesses. If you help small businesses, they stay open and they employ people. That gets other people off of unemployment. That gets people working. That builds the economy.
Yeah. Boyd, how do you fix this? I mean, this is exactly what frustrates people about Washington. This represents it right here.
Yeah, it really does. And the whole key to this is to have members of Congress in the House and the Senate demand their leaders put bills on the floor so that they can be debated in front of the American people. They can have amendments to make them better in front of the American people. They can collaborate and cooperate and all those other things in front of the American people. But the problem is they go behind closed doors. They produce a almost 6,000-page bill. They say it's all or nothing, take it or leave it. And we have to realize there's a better way. And if we did have those business people, I guarantee you the first thing they would do is they would have those negotiations in front of the American people. And all it takes is members of Congress to have enough courage to go to their leaders, to go to Nancy Pelosi and Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer and say, enough. It's time for the Senate to be a great deliberative body and be in front of the American people, because that's the only way we can have transparency, which builds trust, and then we can have actual accountability.
Yeah, we got rid of the smoke-filled rooms, but I guess they're eating ice cream back there and still doing the same things. So we'll be back with more. We're going to talk about the coming up holiday season. Stay with us. We have more of American Agenda after this. Hey, folks, welcome back to American Agenda. Bob Sellers here along with Alison Maloni and our panel. It's been a weird week. Some folks are making it weirder by buying weird Christmas gifts. I hope you all do not get any of these. But here, take a look at some of these odd gifts. How about an elf costume for a lizard? A DNA test for your cat? How about neckline groomer? A neckline groomer. Okay, there's more, Alison.
Yeah, so there's also a dress printed with the infamous leg lamp from A Christmas Story. Actually, my uncle does have that leg lamp he puts out every year. There's Bob Ross flippers. I've seen Bob Ross stuff all over the place, too. And matching gingerbread suits to share the spirit with your significant others. Let's bring in the panel. Bob, I have to start with you first because I had a couple of those that I was going to get you for Christmas, but I decided not to. Is there anything on that list that you would like?
No, I saw that there were some such weird things. I'm easy to buy for and difficult to buy for, because if I want something, I usually just go get it. But then when it comes to clothes, I've been known not to be the most stylish person. So my wife's usually buying stuff, and she basically is saying, I don't like what you're wearing. So I appreciate her doing that.
Okay, Seth, how about you? Any strange gifts or anything that's on your Christmas list?
You know, I'm pretty basic, right? Give me the necktie, maybe a matching pair of socks, keep it simple, something good from my kids. I was interested, though, in the Pablo Escobar, which apparently pays homage to a bear in Kentucky that downed some cocaine. It was the most violent creature on the planet for about 5 minutes before it died.
Oh, that didn't end well. I didn't see it going that way. You really took us down there. Robin, Christmas gifts, when you think about them, what do you think?
Oh, I think about the children. I've got these two kids, like I said, 8 and 12 years old, both boys. You better believe they're going to have some fun with some prank gifts this year. I already know under that Christmas tree right back there is a gravy boat with a cat, and the gravy pours out of its mouth. That's going to my mother. God help her. God bless you, Mama.
That is perfect. I love it. Boyd, you're in Utah, right?
Yes, that's correct.
I can't, I've been there at Christmas time. It's a marvelous place to be at Christmas time. So what kind of gifts usually come up? Are there any weird ones?
Well, I think the weird ones that everyone's looking at this year, it's sort of the one thing we didn't lose in 2020, which was irony. If you actually go, since we started this hour talking about AOC, if you go to her website, you can get a Tax the Rich sweatshirt for $57.
Yeah, exactly.
if you want a hat that says, cancel my student loan, it's $27. So it's ironic that those pushing the socialist side of things are really good capitalists when it comes to business.
Yeah. That maybe they realize why things cost what they cost. Alison, there is one thing that I discovered yesterday. I took my 17-year-old twin daughters shopping because I had to shop for their mother. I didn't know, and I hate shopping. I wander around aimlessly. I don't know what I'm looking for. They have the same style that she does. All of a sudden, we're done in an hour. I mean, it was a dream come true. I hate shopping, and it was perfect. So I'm guessing, yeah, so it worked out. So I got that going. Now, when it comes to Christmas, you've got little kids, you've got girls, so how do you deal with that?
Well, you know what? As they get older, they want the more expensive gifts, right?
Yes.
When they were younger, you could buy, 5 puzzles and Legos and be set, but now they want these, expensive gifts. So I'm saying, well, Santa is only going to bring one gift under the tree. So trying to kind of just do that and still buy for the little one. But we're having fun with Elf on the Shelf. I don't know if you guys have that in your house.
Yeah, we used to have
maybe
that.
Too old.
Yeah, we used to have that, and I am happy that we no longer have that.
Yes. Yeah, it's a burden. Seth, I know you have young children. Do you guys have Elf on the Shelf?
We don't. We always threaten that Elf on the Shelf only comes if you're really, really bad. So you don't want to see old Elf on the Shelf.
Don't do it, Seth. Don't do
it. That's been the way Santa's been handling it in our house.
Yeah, we have fun and talk about Christmas gifts, but Boyd, we really think about this year, right? 2020. A lot of people are excited for it to be over. But one thing that at least I noticed over this year is that we certainly have gotten more family time. And so you really, after what we've been through with COVID and everything, to really think about the holidays and what's important, and it's family, and to really be thankful for that. And I know that a lot of people can't see their loved ones. Are you able to get with your family for Christmas?
I've got 6 grandchildren, and I will be seeing them by Zoom this year. So that's I'm not happy about that at all.
Yeah.
But to your point, it is the family time is so important, and it has given all of us a chance to really reflect differently. And it's amazing to me. I had people on my radio show today, and I couldn't believe how many chimed in and said, I'm actually grateful for 2020 because it did refocus me on family. And really that idea that not everything that counts can be counted.
Yeah, we got to run. You understand that as a radio guy. We're out of time. Boyd, Robin, Seth, Alison, thanks one and all. And of course, Alison, you're back here tomorrow, and we will be back here tomorrow on American Agenda. Hope to see you.